companies with engaged employees, they just do better, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you know what? The sales experts, they had this stat, and I think it was like 202%
Wow.
outperform their competitors. That's a crazy amount.
Yeah, that's wild.
Just because they have engaged employees and, one of the biggest things.
Yeah, what is that?
Communication.
It's huge. Yeah, communication is everything.
Communication is key. So we are going to dive into that today. We are looking at the sales experts.
Yeah.
This article, they had some really interesting, really insightful tips, I think, for people.
I think so too. And I think it's interesting how they go beyond like all the fluff, all the buzzwords. You hear all the time
I know, right?
about like open door policy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like open door policy. But is it really open,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how do you really create that environment where people feel like
Yeah.
they can share their ideas, their concerns?
That's a good point. And the sales experts, they really talk about that, creating that trust and psychological safety.
Where people feel comfortable actually speaking up.
Yeah. So how do you do that?
Like, how do you actually create that?
It's easy to just say build trust, but how do you actually do it?
Well, the sales experts, they suggest something called active listening.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't mean, just nodding your head when someone's talking.
Right.
It's about really engaging and asking clarifying questions and reflecting back what you've heard to really make sure that you understand their perspective.
So it's like, if you are a sales manager, how much more motivated would your reps be
Right.
if they felt like you were really listening to them,
Totally.
not just waiting to talk?
Exactly. And it goes beyond, just individual conversations. The sales experts also talk about the importance of transparency and a shared vision.
Huge.
If you were on a ship, wouldn't you want to know where it was going?
Right. Yeah.
Your employees are the same way.
Yeah. They need to understand like the company's goals, where you are headed, and how their individual roles fit in.
It's like sailing without a map. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Just drifting.
Just hoping for the best.
Yeah.
When everybody understands that why behind what they're doing, it just creates a sense of purpose and alignment that is so powerful. It's not just about hitting quotas.
Right.
It's about working together towards something bigger.
Yeah, that's when you get sales success, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about bringing in donuts.
Exactly. It's not about the perks.
Yeah.
It's about like a deliberate approach to communication.
Okay.
And that leads us to another key point from the sales experts. They say that communication is a two-way street.
Wait, so it's not just about, the leaders broadcasting information.
It's not a one-way street. It's not just top-down.
Okay.
It's equally important to make sure that employees have channels to share their ideas, their feedback, their concerns.
Okay, so what does that look like practically?
So if I'm a sales manager,
Right.
what am I doing?
Yeah.
Well, it could be as simple as implementing regular check-ins, encouraging open dialogue during team meetings, setting up a system for anonymous feedback. The point is to make sure that information is flowing freely.
Yeah, like a feedback loop.
Yeah, exactly.
They need that input to make good decisions.
Precisely. And the sales experts really emphasize that kind of open communication can lead to some really incredible outcomes.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Like they talk about how it can spark innovation,
Okay.
boost employee engagement, and even improve your customer relationships.
Wow.
Because when your team feels heard, when they feel valued, they're more likely to go above and beyond,
Okay.
both internally and when they're interacting with clients.
It's more than just sending memos, right?
Well, way more than that.
It's about really creating that culture of open dialogue and collaboration.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
That's how you get sales success.
That's the recipe.
Yeah, no matter what industry you're in.
No matter what you're selling.
Totally.
Yeah, and you know what? You brought up a great point there when you said collaboration.
Right.
The sales experts talk about this too, and they say that technology can really help facilitate communication.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in today's world with remote work.
Absolutely.
And hybrid work. We can't always just rely on those water cooler chats.
No, not so much anymore.
So we really need to be more intentional about the digital tools that we're using.
Yeah.
And, think about things like regular video calls, team messaging platforms, or even something as simple as an email newsletter to keep everyone in the loop.
So it's like we're creating those virtual water coolers.
Exactly.
Yeah, those spaces.
Those virtual spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not always just about like the formal communication.
Right.
The sales experts talk about how you can use technology to really create a sense of community.
Oh, cool.
You know, like think about setting up a Slack channel for wins, for recognizing each other's accomplishments, or even just posting funny memes.
Oh, I love that.
To lighten the mood, you know.
That's like those virtual high fives.
It is. It is. And you know what? That reminds me of a point that they made.
Okay.
That I think is super important for sales leaders. They said, don't underestimate the power of celebrating success.
Oh, I totally agree.
You know?
Yeah, when I was leading a sales team, we had this bell.
Oh, nice.
And we would ring it every time somebody closed a big deal.
I love that.
It was so simple, but it created this energy.
It's so effective.
And the excitement.
It is. And it's like that old saying, what gets rewarded gets repeated.
Totally.
And when you take the time to celebrate those wins, big or small, it reinforces positive behavior and it motivates people to keep pushing for success.
And, it doesn't have to be anything crazy.
No.
It could just be like a congratulatory email.
That's all it takes.
Or like a shout out in a meeting.
Exactly. Just taking a minute to say thank you.
Exactly.
And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about building trust and making people feel valued.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about trust, transparency, two-way communication, using technology effectively. Is there anything else that the sales experts recommend?
There is one more key takeaway that I want to highlight.
Okay.
And that's the importance of consistency.
Okay. Consistency.
Yes. It's not enough to just have, these great ideas about communication.
Right.
You really need to put systems in place to make sure that it's happening regularly and effectively. So think about scheduling things like weekly team meetings, setting clear expectations for communication response times, or, implementing regular feedback mechanisms.
So you're making it a habit.
Exactly.
Not just like a one-time thing.
Not a one-off. It has to be baked into the culture.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But we're all so busy,
I know.
Sometimes it feels like there just aren't enough hours in the day.
Right. You're like, when am I supposed to do this?
To focus on all this communication stuff.
Yeah, I've got sales to make.
So what would you say to a sales leader who's listening to this and they're like, feeling a little overwhelmed?
I think the sales experts would say, start small.
Okay.
You don't have to overhaul everything overnight.
Okay.
Pick one or two things.
Right.
To improve communication within your team and just focus on those.
So like maybe having more one-on-ones.
Exactly.
Or setting up like a shared calendar.
That's a great.
Just those little things.
Exactly. Those little things can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Especially over time.
Okay. Start small, be consistent.
Yes.
And watch those communication muscles grow.
I love that.
So what does this all mean for our listeners?
Yeah.
Those sales leaders, hiring managers,
right,
executives who are tuned in today.
I think the big takeaway here is that employer-employee communication, this isn't just, some fluffy HR concept.
Right.
This is truly a strategic imperative for sales success.
It's about creating that work environment.
It is.
Where people feel connected.
Yes.
And supported and empowered.
Absolutely. And that translates directly to a more engaged, productive, and successful sales team.
And the sales experts have given us the roadmap.
They have.
For how to do it.
That's right.
They've reminded us that it starts with building trust.
Yes.
Transparency.
Yeah.
Two-way communication, using technology in a smart way.
Strategically.
Yeah, strategically. And celebrating success.
Yes.
And making it a habit.
Exactly.
So it's like, those are the ingredients.
Those are the ingredients.
In the recipe for sales communication success.
That's it.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this has been fascinating, just looking at communication.
It has.
And how it affects sales success.
It really has. And I think what's so cool about what the sales experts are saying is that it's all really actionable stuff.
Totally. Yeah. These aren't just theories.
It's not just a pie in the sky concept.
Yeah.
These are things you can actually implement in your team, regardless of the size.
Exactly. If you're leading a team of 5 or 500,
totally,
you can use these same principles.
Yeah, the principles are the same.
Yeah.
You're still creating that culture of open communication where everyone feels like they can contribute.
I really liked how they talked about technology too.
Yeah, me too.
Because you can't get away from it these days.
You can't. It's essential. And it's so powerful.
It is.
We have all these amazing tools that can help us stay connected, to collaborate, to build those strong relationships.
Yeah. And even when we're not in the office.
Especially when we're not in the office.
Exactly. But it's not just about using the tools, right?
Right. That's a great point.
It's about using them the right way.
You got to be intentional, strategic.
Yeah. It's not about just like
Yeah.
blasting people with messages all the time.
It's not about having Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
You got to use them in a way that supports that communication culture that we've been talking about.
So we're wrapping up our deep dive here.
Yeah.
What is like the one thing you want our listeners
Yeah.
to take away from this conversation?
If I had to boil it down to one message, it would be this. Don't underestimate the power of communication when it comes to sales success.
So it's not just like a soft skill.
It is not. No, it's not a nice to have.
That's like the foundation.
It is the foundation of any high-performing sales team.
So invest in it.
Invest in it, nurture it.
And watch what happens.
And watch your team transform.
Yeah, watch your team transform.
Yeah, watch your results improve.
Awesome. Well, for our listeners, if you want to go deeper into this, we highly recommend checking out the full article.
From the Sales Experts.
From the Sales Experts, they go into even more detail.
Yeah, more examples, case studies, you name it.
Yeah, it's really worth a read.
It's great stuff.
And remember, those small changes, they can make a huge difference.
They really can.
So just pick one or two things and start there.
Start there. See what happens.
You might be surprised.
You might be.
At what happens to your team and your bottom line.
Yeah, your results.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us on the deep dive.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, this was a good one.
It was.
We'll catch you next time.
Until then.
With another insightful deep dive.
See